one of the things that is most interesting, I think, politically speaking, is that today is the beginning of the fall term of the new term, the 2009-2010 term of the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court. And they're going to be looking at a whole variety of issues, and we're going to touch on some of these as days go on. Campaigns, money, political speech. We've had quite a bit of conversation about that. This 8-foot cross in the Mojave National Preserve, the right or non-right to kill animals, is that a new form of pornography? And selling it. Terrorism, whether it's a crime to give material support to terrorists, even if you're unintentionally doing it. Are these laws overbroad? The life sentences for juveniles, is this constitutional? And, of course, the Second Amendment. In the last session, the court ruled that there was a right under the Second Amendment, an absolute right to own a gun. But that was only for Washington, D.C. They overturned a law in Washington, D.C. because the Congress has jurisdiction over D.C., but not over the individual states. Or maybe they do, right? I mean, if you think that gun ownership is an absolutely unlimited or weapon ownership, shall we say, is an absolutely unlimited right, try building a rocket launcher in your backyard. It ain't going to happen. So, anyhow, in this context, gun accidents kill 500 kids a year on average. And this is fascinating. This just was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, volume 359, page 989. Are gun owners more likely to kill themselves? Matthew Miller of the Harvard School of Public Health studied 4 years of data in the U.S. and found higher rates of suicides involving firearms in states with more gun owners, up to 4 times higher for men and 8 times higher, 800% higher for women. The numbers of suicides not involving firearms, on the other hand, were the same. In other words, the presence of the firearms increased the risk of suicide, as well as the risk of suicide with a gun. A dozen smaller cases have also shown anywhere from a 2 to a 10-time greater risk of suicide in homes with a gun, both for the owner, for the spouse, and for the spouse's children, or the owner's children. So apropos of this, we got an interesting, what do you call it, publicist pitch, I guess is what it was called, from Gun Owners of America, gunowners.org, who have been with us a number of times over the years on the show. Mike Hammond is an attorney with Gun Owners of America right now, and in fact the lead attorney for Gun Owners of America. And he writes this interesting piece. Now it's all predicated on a might be maybe. Mike Hammond points out that the issue of gun control is extremely important to the forces behind single-payer health care. He contends such language, the individual mandate, in the bill could lower premiums for individuals and families who do not own guns. And so if that's the case, then, if you say, okay, if you don't own a gun, you're less likely to have a suicide or an accidental killing in your house, and therefore we're going to give you a discount on the insurance, does that mean then that the government begins the notorious let's register everybody's guns so that we can determine the rates? It seems like a bit of a stretch to me. Mike Hammond, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. And welcome back from Germany.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be home.
I've had a layover in Reykjavik as well.
Oh, my.
So I know what that's like.
Yeah, it's no fun at all, especially when they don't let you off the plane and don't do much of anything at all for 3 hours.
Well, I got to see the beautiful Burg of Reykjavik.
So you had an actual layover.
Yeah, we had actual layover.
Louise and I used to do that back in the 70s when that was the cheapest way to get to Europe, was on Icelandic Air. But this was a medical emergency, so the plane just in the middle of the night. Anyway, let's talk about guns here. Yeah. Mike, if you're concerned, and Gun Owners of America, gunowners.org, concerned that the health care bill might be a backdoor to gun registration and more tightly regulating gun ownership at the federal level. And also, of course, there's this case before the Supreme Court of whether the absolute right to own guns, which they've extended to citizens of Washington, D.C., whether or not that's in conflict with the 10th Amendment and states' rights.
I can talk about both of those. Which do you want to talk about first?
Well, actually, I find the second one I think we can dispose of fairly quickly, fascinating. in your mind, which is more important of the two amendments? Are you one of those folks who subscribes to the notion that the founders put the amendments in the order that they did as a way of prioritizing them, and therefore the Second Amendment right, which the Supreme Court has now ruled to own a gun, trumps the 10th Amendment right of states to seize powers onto themselves?
I don't subscribe to the order, or else the Third Amendment would be more important than the Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth. And
well, it's been a long time since anybody's tried to quarter anybody in their home, you know.
Quartering troops would be a central issue of constitutional law. I do think that, incidentally, the Sotomayor, when she was testifying, basically seemed to cling to the notion that, and this decision she handed down, that at least the Second Amendment had not been incorporated into the to the states by the 14th Amendment. And when she was asked about that by Orrin Hatch, she cited footnote 23. She knew the number of the footnote in the Supreme Court decision Heller, which had cited those cases, but she didn't know what was in the footnote, which shows you how heavily programmed she was. But in fact, the case that she was citing, which said that the Second Amendment wasn't incorporated, was an 1893 case handed down by the Waite Court. Now, you may have never heard of Chief Justice Waite, not one of our...
Actually, I wrote a book about him.
Oh, wow. Well, then you've trumped me. Well,
Morrison Remick Waite was his name.
His most significant decision was handed down 3 years after that, and that was Plessy versus Ferguson. And I'm guessing that Sotomayor...
I don't think that would have been Waite, because I think that Waite died in 1889.
Isn't going to be quoting from Plessy versus Ferguson anytime soon.
Yeah. Although, check your records, because I'm pretty sure that Morrison Remick Waite died in 1887, 88, or 89, because 1886 was the Santa Clara County case, and that's the one I wrote the book about. But in any case, you're not concerned that gun owners are going to lose their rights under this case. We have about a minute left here. I want to cut to the issue here of gun control and health care.
Yeah.
Shouldn't, if having a gun in the house increases the risk of death and disfigurement, the risk of medical costs, shouldn't there be a higher premium? Mike, can you stick around for a minute?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let's pick this up on the other side of the break here. This is I think this is a fascinating issue, and we'll see. We'll see what Mike has to say about this, and if it actually is going to change the actuarial status, should there be a registry?
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.